Imagine sitting by a warm fire, sheltered behind thick stone walls, while a blizzard howls outside. You are far away from the chaos of the modern world. No electricity, no phones. 700 years ago, in a medieval village, this is how people truly lived. Tonight, I am taking you on a journey to that era. Just listen, and let yourself relax. No electricity. No central heating. No supermarkets. No hospitals. So, how did they survive? How did they stay warm? What did they eat? How did they pass their days from dawn till dusk? The answers are far more fascinating and peaceful than you might think. In this video, I will walk you through a winter day of a medieval family, minute by minute, hour by hour. If you love getting lost in the depths of history and enjoy detailed, peaceful stories for a restful sleep, don't forget to subscribe to the channel now. Hit the like button so we can create more of this content and transport you to the Middle Ages every night. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. At the end of the video, answer me this in the comments: if you lived in the Middle Ages, which modern convenience would you miss the most? Hot showers, the internet, or something else? I'm curious to read everyone's answers. Now, close your eyes. Lean back comfortably, and travel with me to a cold winter day in the year 1340. The sun has not yet risen. The sky is a deep charcoal gray, almost black. A profound silence blankets the village. Only the howling of the wind and the distant, early crow of a rooster can be heard. It is November, 1340, in the small village of Thornbury in northern England. Winter dictates every moment of life here. Thomas and his family are in a deep sleep inside their low, stone-walled cottage at the edge of the village. The house is a simple, single-room structure. About 20 feet long and 13 feet wide. Tiny by modern standards, but a typical living space for a medieval peasant. In this small space lives a whole family: Thomas, his wife Margaret, their 14-year-old son William, their 11-year-old daughter Agnes, and little 7-year-old John. The walls are built of thick stone, held together by a mortar of mud, straw, and animal dung. This mortar has hardened over time, but years of wear have left cracks. In winter, freezing drafts sneak through these tiny fissures. Thomas tries to patch them with fresh mud every autumn, but perfect insulation is impossible. The roof is made of thick thatch and reeds gathered from the nearby marshes, masterfully woven together. Over the years, this covering has compressed into a highly effective layer of insulation. When snow falls, the white blanket accumulating on the roof provides extra protection. The angle is steep, allowing rain and melting snow to run off easily. Still, after every heavy snowfall, Thomas wonders if the roof will hold. Just last winter, their neighbor John Baker's roof collapsed. Thankfully, the family was out, or there could have been serious injuries. The floor is bare earth, covered with a thick layer of rushes and dried hay. This simple flooring offers some protection from the ground's chill, but feet are always cool here. The rushes aren't changed often, usually, new layers are just added on top. Sometimes, fragrant herbs like lavender, sage, or rosemary are scattered among the rushes to improve the smell and ward off pests. Right in the center of the house is the hearth. It's a simple but vital structure built directly on the stone floor, a pit surrounded by flat stones. There is a hole in the roof for smoke to escape, but it's never quite enough. A light haze of smoke perpetually hangs in the air. Over time, the walls and ceiling beams have been coated in a layer of soot. This soot actually provides extra insulation and protects the wood from insects. The fire in the hearth is never fully extinguished overnight. It is never allowed to go out completely because restarting it is too difficult. There are no lighters, no matches. Flint and steel are used to strike a spark, but it is a laborious task. So, the fire is kept alive. Throughout the night, embers glow beneath the ashes, providing a little warmth and making it easy to coax the flames back to life in the morning. The family sleeps in different corners of the room. Thomas and Margaret have a simple bed, a large sack stuffed with thick straw, covered with wool blankets and animal pelts. In winter, they use 5 or 6 thick layers. Still, the nights are freezing. Sometimes, when they wake up, they can see their breath as steam. The children sleep in a different arrangement. William and John in one corner, Agnes in another. Their beds are simpler, thick mats spread on the floor with straw-filled sacks on top. Their blankets are thinner, so the children usually sleep huddled together to share body heat. Dawn has not yet broken, but Margaret wakes up. In medieval villages, women usually rise before the men. Morning chores are largely their responsibility. Margaret sits up slowly. She hesitates for a second, not wanting to move. It is warm under the blankets, and freezing outside, but there is work to be done. She takes a deep breath and rises with determination. She is wearing a thick woolen dress. In fact, she never took it off. Medieval people often slept in their day clothes. Undressing was impractical and simply too cold. Margaret wears a thick, dark brown woolen tunic, sewn from fabric she wove herself last year. Underneath is a thinner linen shift. She wraps a shawl around her shoulders, a piece of thick wool cut from an old blanket. She pulls on thick wool socks and leather boots. The boots are years old but still functional. The leather has hardened and is patched in places, but it protects against the cold. Margaret approaches the hearth slowly. She kneels and carefully rakes through the ashes. Beneath them, red embers glow. With practiced hands, she adds small wood chips and dry brush. She blows gently to revive the embers. A few minutes later, flames rise. The fire is alive again. The firelight illuminates the interior, casting flickering shadows that dance on the walls. Margaret warms her hands by the flames, her breath visible in the firelight. Once the fire is burning well, Margaret places an iron pot over it. The pot is filled with water from last night, fresh spring water drawn from the village well. The stone well in the center of the village provides clean, cold water. In winter, it is icy. As the water begins to heat, Margaret goes to the grain store, a wooden chest in the corner of the house. This is where the autumn harvest is kept: barley, oats, and a little wheat. Wheat is expensive. Peasants usually eat barley bread. Wheat bread is for the rich and the lords. Margaret scoops out a bowl of barley grains. She picks through them carefully, removing stones or dirt, then tosses them into the boiling water. She stirs with a thick wooden spoon, starting to cook the pottage. Pottage is the staple food of medieval peasants. Morning, noon, and night, pottage is eaten at almost every meal. Sometimes onions are added, sometimes dried herbs, sometimes a piece of salt pork. But mostly, it is just barley and water. As Margaret stirs, she thinks, this winter will be long. The grain stocks are good, but are they enough? The autumn harvest wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect either. The rains didn't come on time. After giving the Lord his share, the mandatory tax for using the land, will the remainder suffice? These worries are constantly on Margaret's mind. But now is not the time to dwell on them. The family is hungry, the day's work is plentiful. Take one step at a time, save the day. Leave the future to God. As the fire grows, the house slowly warms up. But it is a slow process. The stone walls hold the cold, taking hours to heat. The temperature inside never truly becomes hot, merely tolerable. Margaret places a few large stones around the fire. Once heated, these stones retain warmth for a long time. At night, they can be placed between blankets to act as natural heaters. Hanging from the ceiling are dried goods, bunches of thyme, rosemary, and sage, onions harvested and dried last summer, pieces of salted meat, a ham and a few chicken legs. Throughout the winter, these preserved meats are precious. Fresh meat is rare in winter. Animals are slaughtered, and their meat is salted, dried, or smoked. Smoke from the fire drifts slowly toward the hole in the roof, but much of it lingers inside. Margaret is used to it. Medieval people were constantly exposed to smoke. Her eyes water, but she doesn't mind. It is part of life. The pottage slowly thickens. Margaret adds salt. Precious salt. It is expensive, but pottage is inedible without it. Just a pinch to enhance the flavor. The crackling of the fire and the smell of the pottage wake Thomas. He opens his eyes but doesn't move. Under the blanket it's warm, outside, it's cold. But a man, a father, cannot be lazy. He has to feed his family. Thomas sits up, his back aching. Normal for a 45-year-old peasant. The hardship of life is written on his body. His hands are calloused, his back often sore, his knees worn. "Good morning," he says to Margaret. His voice is hoarse, sleepy. "Good morning," Margaret replies. The pottage is almost ready. Thomas stands up. He hasn't taken his clothes off either. He puts on a thick leather vest and pulls on his boots, heading for the door. "I must check the animals," he says. "Be careful, it's freezing out there," Margaret warns. Thomas pushes the wooden door. It opens with a creak, and a cold wind rushes in. Margaret shivers. When Thomas steps out, the cold slaps his face. He takes a deep breath, his exhalation joining the air as steam. The sky is still dark, but a faint light is appearing in the east. Sunrise is about an hour away. The ground is frozen solid. With every step, a crunching sound comes from under his feet. The mud and earth have solidified like stone. It didn't snow last night, but the ground is icy. Just behind the house is a small barn. A simple structure made of wooden posts with a thatched roof and wattle walls. Here, the family's animals are sheltered: 2 cows, a pig, a few chickens, and a sheep. To a medieval peasant, animals are incredibly valuable. The cows provide milk. The pig will be slaughtered in autumn, its meat salted. The chickens give eggs, the sheep gives wool. Without these animals, the family cannot survive. Thomas opens the barn door. Inside, it is slightly warmer than outside, thanks to the body heat of the animals and the straw insulation. But it is still cold. The breath of the animals hangs thick in the air. The cows, Betsy and Mabel, low softly when they see Thomas. They are clearly hungry. Thomas gives them dry hay and straw, harvested and dried last summer. This is their feed throughout the winter. Good morning, girls, Thomas speaks softly. Talking to the animals comes naturally to him, they are part of the family. Thomas sits on a small three-legged stool and approaches Betsy. The cow is calm, used to this routine. Thomas begins to milk with experienced hands. A rhythmic motion. Swish, swish, swish. The warm milk hits the tin pail. Milking is warm work. His hands move, the cow is warm. Even on this winter morning, Thomas warms up a little after a few minutes. Milk is as valuable as gold to a medieval family. Milk, butter, cheese, these are critical for the daily diet. Especially in winter, when fresh food is scarce, dairy is a vital source of protein. After milking Betsy, Thomas moves to Mabel. Mabel is a bit more restless. There are moments she doesn't like Thomas, but today she is calm. Thomas continues milking quietly. About half an hour later, 2 pails are full. Thomas will carry this milk carefully back to the house. Margaret will use some for drinking and some to make butter. The pig, named Henry, grunts when he sees Thomas. Pigs always seem hungry. Thomas gives him vegetable scraps and some straw. Henry eats eagerly. This pig will be slaughtered in the autumn, that is the tradition here. Every family slaughters their pig before deep winter. The meat is salted and dried to last the season. It is a hard day, especially for the children who get attached, but it is necessary for survival. The chickens are making noise in their small wooden coop. Thomas throws them some grain, and they swarm the food. He checks for eggs. He finds 3. Good. Eggs are rich in protein and precious. The sheep stands quietly in the corner. It will be sheared in the spring, and the wool processed by the village weaver to become fabric, perhaps a new tunic or blanket. Thomas checks all the animals' water bowls. Some are frozen, he has to break the ice. Hydration is important, dehydration can be deadly for livestock. As Thomas tends to the animals, the village slowly wakes up. Smoke rises from the chimneys of neighboring houses. Doors open. People step out. The sound of roosters echoes from the distance. There are no clocks in the village, but the rooster is enough. The whole village wakes before the sun. Thomas sees his neighbor, old Walter. Walter is walking slowly toward his own barn, leaning on a staff. Good morning, Thomas, Walter calls out. Good morning, Walter. Cold morning. Aye. Winter is coming. Snow will arrive soon, Walter predicts. Are we ready? God willing, we survive, Thomas replies with a laugh. This small talk is part of the daily routine. The villagers know each other, everyone knows everyone. A stranger would be noticed immediately. Thomas takes the milk pails and returns to the house. The sun is now on the horizon. The sky has turned a pinkish gray. Nature is slowly waking up. Inside, Margaret has set the table. A simple wooden board resting on 2 stones. Around it are stools. No plates, wooden bowls instead. No forks, spoons only. There are knives, but everyone uses their own personal knife carried at their belt. The pottage is ready. Margaret ladles it into bowls with a large wooden scoop. She pours a little milk over it. She puts an extra piece of salt pork in Thomas's bowl, for strength and energy. Thomas will be doing heavy labor. He needs more calories. The children are awake now. William is up first, teenagers are always energetic. Then Agnes, and finally little John. John's eyes are still sleepy, his hair a mess. The family gathers around the table. This gathering is important. Family unity is the foundation of medieval life. Thomas prays first. Short but sincere. Lord, we thank you for this food you have bestowed upon us. Protect us through the winter. Amen. Amen, the family says in unison. Then they begin to eat. The pottage is hot and comforting. On a cold morning, a hot meal is perfect. No one speaks. Everyone focuses on eating. Medieval people are generally quiet while eating. Food is serious business, precious, and must be respected. Margaret passes around the ale. Yes, beer in the morning. In the Middle Ages, water isn't always clean. Ale is safer. It is small beer, low alcohol. Even children drink it. It's slightly stronger for adults, but still mild. After breakfast, Thomas shares the plans. Today we will work on the north field, he says. We need to turn the soil. William, you come with me. William nods. At 14, he is slowly being included in men's work. Agnes, you stay with your mother. Today is laundry day, Margaret says. Agnes groans. Laundry day is not her favorite, but it must be done. John, you watch the chickens. Let them roam around the garden, but watch out for wolves, Thomas instructs his youngest. John nods excitedly. Responsibility means growing up. Breakfast over, everyone prepares for their tasks. Margaret and Agnes clean the bowls, simply wiping them out with a dry cloth or bread crust. Water is precious, soap is non-existent. Thomas and William put on their outer garments, thick wool cloaks, leather gloves, heavy hoods. It is still very cold outside. Thomas readies his tools, a heavy iron spade, a pickaxe, and a hoe. Agricultural tools are incredibly valuable. Iron is expensive. These tools are passed down from generation to generation and protected with care. William leads the 2 oxen out of the barn. Oxen are heavy, strong, used for plowing. These oxen actually belong to the Lord. Peasants can use them, but in return, they must work for the Lord. This is the foundation of the feudal system. The sun has now fully risen. Golden light illuminates the frozen fields. The sky is a clear blue. Cold, but beautiful. Everyone in the village has started work. Women are washing, baking bread, tending animals. Men are in the fields, forests, or workshops. Children rush about on small errands. In the center of the village rises the church. A stone structure, larger and sturdier than any other house. The church bell rings for morning prayer. Some villagers stop, bow their heads, and say a quick prayer. Religion is at the center of everything. Thomas and William walk toward the field. The oxen move slowly, their breath hanging in the air. The ground is hard, frozen. But work must be done, winter preparations are key. The soil must be turned. Weeds must be cleared. This work will last all day. Heavy, exhausting, but Thomas is used to it. His whole life has passed this way. His father lived like this, his grandfather too. His son William will live like this. Thomas and William arrive at the north field. This land belongs to Lord Pembroke. Thomas and the other villagers work these lands, but they do not own them. In the feudal system, serfs live and work on the Lord's land in exchange for protection. Thomas has his own small strip, a half-acre plot, but first, he must work the Lord's land. 3 days a week of mandatory labor for the Lord. The remaining days are for his own plot. The ground is frozen. The pickaxe barely sinks in. Thomas presses down with all his might. The oxen pull the plow, but the earth is stubborn. Progress is slow. William, you take that side, Thomas instructs. Clear the stones, pull the roots. William begins. Young but strong. His hands are not yet as calloused as his father's, but they are hardening. He lifts a large rock and throws it to the edge of the field. They are silent as they work. No breath to spare for talking. The work is heavy, the tempo constant. Occasionally they stop, breathe, then continue. In winter, farm work slows down but never stops. Soil must be turned, stones removed, ditches cleared. When spring comes, everything must be ready for sowing. Medieval agriculture follows a 3-year cycle. 1 year wheat, 1 year barley or oats, 1 year fallow. Every strip is in rotation. This system helps not to deplete the soil. Thomas has seen this cycle his whole life. Sometimes the harvest is plentiful, sometimes poor. Everything depends on the weather. Too much rain, crops rot. Not enough rain, crops wither. Late frost kills the seed. Early frost kills the harvest. Father, William finally speaks. I heard there was famine in the neighboring village last year. Will we have famine this year too? Thomas stops digging. He looks at his son. A serious question. God forbid. No, Thomas answers. The harvest was good this year. There is enough food. But we must be thrifty. The winter is long. We must make the food last until spring. What happens if the food runs out? Then we starve. But we are not at that point yet. Don't worry, son. We will manage. Other villagers are working in the surrounding fields. Thomas sees John Miller in the distance. He is the village miller, grinding wheat into flour, a very important trade. A bit further away, Peter Smith is working. The blacksmith. Repairing tools, shoeing horses, doing metalwork. Strong hands, muscular arms, smithing is heavy, hot work. Women are also visible in the fields. Some are gathering vegetables, winter cabbage, beets, carrots. Root vegetables withstand the winter and can be stored underground. Children are running around. Some herding chickens, some gathering firewood, some just playing. Medieval children play too, but they have very little free time. They get used to working at a young age. As the hours pass, the sun rises higher, but the air remains cold. Thomas's hands are numb. He has leather gloves, but they aren't enough. Occasionally he rubs his hands together, trying to warm them with his breath. William's nose is bright red, his cheeks burning from the cold, but he doesn't complain. To be a man means not complaining. To be strong means to endure. Let's take a break, Thomas finally says. Let's drink water. They have a small leather flask. Inside is water, or rather, small beer. As Thomas said, water isn't always reliable. Beer is better. They both drink. The liquid is cold but refreshing. Thomas pulls out a piece of hard bread. Barley bread baked yesterday. Solid, hard, but filling. He gives half to William. Chewing the bread is difficult. Teeth are very important. If your teeth go bad, you can't eat. Thomas is missing a few teeth, the result of age and poor hygiene. No toothbrushes, no toothpaste. People sometimes clean their teeth with a twig, but it's not enough. The sun is now approaching the middle of the sky. Noon. The church bells ring for the midday prayer. Thomas and William put down their tools. They bow their heads. Pater Noster, caes in caelus. Thomas prays in Latin. He doesn't know the exact meaning, but he recites it from memory. The church speaks Latin. Peasants don't speak Latin, but they hear it. When the prayer ends, they continue working, but the pace slows. The morning's energy has waned. Bodies are tired. Stomachs feel hunger. The pottage from the morning is long gone. Let's work a bit more until noon, Thomas says. Then we'll go home for lunch. William nods gratefully. Tired, hungry. Going home is a good idea. As he works, Thomas inhales the smell of the soil. Damp, rich, organic. This scent gives him peace. His whole life has been spent with the soil. He knows it, he loves it. Soil is the source of life. Food comes from the soil. Soil feeds. Soil sustains. Without soil, there is no man. Thomas feels the hardness under his feet. Winter soil is solid, resistant. In spring it will soften, become moist. In summer it will be hot and dry. In autumn the harvest will be gathered, and the cycle will repeat. This cycle is eternal. His grandfather plowed this land, his father plowed it. Thomas plows it. William will plow it. The land has a memory. It is passed from generation to generation. A horseman appears in the distance. Thomas lifts his head, squinting. It is Richard, the Lord's overseer, riding a fine horse in a thick cloak. He checks the peasants' work in the fields. Richard approaches Thomas. He speaks without dismounting. Good morning, Thomas. How goes the work? Good morning, sir. Slow, but we are progressing. The ground is very hard. Yes, it will be a cold winter. The Lord told me to remind you about the taxes. The harvest share must be delivered by Christmas. Thomas shivers inwardly. Taxes are always a source of anxiety, but he doesn't show it on his face. Yes, sir, I haven't forgotten. It will be delivered on time. Good. The Lord will be pleased. God help you. Richard turns his horse and rides away. Thomas relaxes. Dealing with overseers creates tension. They represent the Lord. Power, authority. William looks at his father. Father, why do they ride and we walk? Thomas takes a deep breath. A difficult question. How to explain? The feudal system, birthrights, God's order. Because it is so, Thomas simply says. God willed it. Everyone has a place. Ours is here, on the soil. William looks unsatisfied, but asks no further questions. Some things are not to be questioned. The sun is overhead. High noon. Thomas shoulders the pickaxe. William carries the hoe. They lead the oxen back. Walking home, Thomas is tired but satisfied. The morning work went well, the field progressed. Every day a little more, slow but steady. There is movement in the village. People are returning to their homes. They are preparing lunch. Smoke rises from chimneys. Children run about. Thomas sees his own house. Small but warm. His family is there. Margaret and Agnes have finished the laundry. Now they are preparing food. As they approach the door, Margaret comes out. Welcome, she says. Food is ready. Wash up, quickly. Thomas and William wash their hands in a bucket of water. The water is cold, ice cold, but the dirty hands must be cleaned. No soap, just water. They enter. The fire is burning. The house is lukewarm, the table is ready. Pottage again. But this time it has some vegetables in it. Onions, beets, carrots. It's tastier. The family gathers, they pray. Then they begin to eat, quietly, gratefully. There is food, there is a roof, there is warmth. Thanks be to God. Before Thomas and William went to the field, Margaret and Agnes had started their own tasks. Today is laundry day. One of the most exhausting chores of the week. Washing clothes in the Middle Ages is serious business. No modern washing machine, no running hot water, no strong detergent. Everything is done by hand. Early in the morning, Margaret had placed a large iron cauldron over the fire. Water is heating in the cauldron, cold water drawn from the well. While the water heats, Margaret and Agnes gather the dirty clothes. There aren't that many. Medieval people don't own many clothes. Thomas has 2 tunics. Margaret has 2 dresses, the children 1 or 2 outfits each. Outer garments are washed weekly, undergarments, simple linen shirts, are washed more frequently. Wool tunics and cloaks are washed rarely, wool shrinks and loses shape if it touches water too often. When the water starts to boil, Margaret prepares a wooden tub. She pours the hot water into the tub. Steam rises, warming her face. Soap is scarce. Soap is a luxury product. Expensive. Margaret uses a small piece of homemade soap made from animal fat and lye. It doesn't smell pleasant, but it cleans. Agnes throws the dirty clothes into the tub. Undershirts, children's clothes. Margaret mixes the soap into the water, making it froth. Then both start scrubbing the clothes. With hands, with strong movements, rubbing the dirty parts against a stone. A special flat stone, a washing stone. Scrubbing and scrubbing. This work takes hours. Hands ache, backs bend, arms tire. Mother, why do we work so much? Agnes mutters. At 11, she sometimes finds the chores pointless. Because being clean is important, Margaret explains gently. Dirty clothes bring sickness. God loves cleanliness. Agnes doesn't complain further. Her mother's word is law. After the clothes are scrubbed, they must be rinsed. Margaret prepares another tub full of clean water. The clothes are carefully dipped, wrung out. Soap residue is removed. This is repeated several times. When the water gets dirty, it is changed. Finally, the clothes are clean but wet and heavy. Margaret and Agnes wring them out. Holding two ends, twisting with all their might. Water spurts out. Hands hurt, but they continue. Then the clothes are carried outside. A simple rope is strung next to the house. Clothes are hung on this line. The wind, and if they are lucky, the sun, will dry them. But the air is cold, drying is slow. Sometimes clothes freeze on the line. They become like stiff sheets of ice, but they still dry, slowly. After finishing the laundry, Margaret moves to other tasks. Cleaning the house is a never-ending duty. The floor rushes must be changed. Old rushes are removed, filled with dirt, food scraps, sometimes insects. They are thrown out to be burned. New rushes are laid down. Clean, dry. Fresh herbs are scattered on top. Lavender if available, otherwise thyme or rosemary. This gives a nice scent and wards off vermin. Agnes helps with sweeping. With a simple broom made of bound twigs, she gathers dirt into corners, then sweeps it out. The ceiling and walls are covered in soot. Cleaning this completely is impossible, but wiping it with a cloth occasionally reduces the buildup. After cleaning, Margaret moves to the most important task, food preparation. Lunch will be simple, pottage and vegetables. But she must prepare for dinner. Perhaps bake bread. Margaret checks the flour bin. There is barley flour. A little wheat flour too. Wheat flour is precious, for special days. But today is a normal day. Barley flour is sufficient. Making bread is a long process. Margaret takes a bowl. Puts in flour. Adds starter, dough saved from the previous batch. Adds water, salt. Kneads by hand. Dough making is physical work. Requires strong arms. Margaret kneads for 10 minutes. The dough becomes elastic and soft. Then she sets it aside. It must wait a few hours to rise. There is milk Thomas milked in the morning. Margaret sets some aside to make cheese and butter. Butter making is simple but tiring. Milk is shaken in a thick churn. Margaret moves the wooden dasher up and down, up and down. A rhythmic movement. Agnes helps in turns. Arms get tired, but they continue. Half an hour later, the milk begins to separate. Fat collects, water separates. Margaret carefully collects the fat. This is butter. She adds salt for preservation. If butter is salty, it lasts longer. The remaining liquid, buttermilk, is also valuable. It is drunk or added to pottage. Nothing is wasted. Cheese making is more complex. Rennet is added to the milk. The milk curdles. The curds are cut, the whey squeezed out. A solid mass remains. Fresh cheese. This can be eaten immediately but doesn't last long. For durable cheese, it must be salted, pressed, and aged. Margaret ages some cheeses in her cold pantry for months. As she works, Margaret constantly gives instructions to her daughter. Look, Agnes, the dough must be soft and elastic. If it's too hard, the bread will come out like a stone. When making butter, don't rush. Churn slow and steady. If you rush, the milk spills. When the cheese curdles, don't stir too much. Be gentle. Agnes listens, learns. One day she too will be a housewife. A wife, a mother. She must know all these skills. Survival depends on them. In the Middle Ages, girls learn housework from a young age. They don't go to school. School is only for the rich. They don't know how to read or write, a luxury skill. But they learn practical life skills perfectly. Agnes sometimes feels restricted. Her brothers can roam the fields, the forest, the village. She is always at home, by her mother's side. But there is no other option. Society is structured this way. While working, Margaret and Agnes sometimes talk. Stories, village gossip, thoughts. Mother, who do you think I will marry? Agnes asks curiously. Margaret smiles. Her daughter is growing up. thinking of the future. If God wills, a good man. Hardworking, honorable. But can I choose myself? Your father and I will talk with you, but yes. A suitable candidate will be found. Your happiness matters. Medieval marriages are usually arranged by families, but not entirely by force. The children's opinion is also taken. Especially among peasants, love marriages happen too. Neighbor Mary got married last month, Agnes continues. Her husband is from another village. Mary looked sad. Yes, leaving family is hard. But when you marry, you join your husband's family. Agnes falls silent. The future is thought-provoking. Time passes. Noon approaches. Margaret checks the pottage. Boiling. Finding its consistency. She adds vegetables. Onions, beets, carrots. Onions from the store, others from the garden. She chops the vegetables into small pieces. The knife is old but functional. She adds some dried herbs. Thyme, pepper, aromas are good. The pottage is seasoned, tastier. The bread dough has risen. Margaret checks. Swelled nicely. Now it's time to bake. Outside the house, there is a stone oven shared with neighbors. Today is Margaret's oven day. She heats the oven with fire. Burns wood inside. The oven stones turn red, heat up. She shapes the dough. Round, flat loaves. When the oven is hot enough, she rakes out the coals. Places the dough inside. Closes the oven mouth. The bread will bake for about an hour. In that time, she can do other work. Little John has been tending the chickens since morning. At 7 years old, he takes his responsibilities seriously. The chickens roam around the house, searching for bugs and seeds on the ground. John watches carefully. A wolf or fox could appear. Poultry is easy prey. A chicken gets close to the garden wall. John gently guides it away. There are winter vegetables in the garden, cabbages, onions. Chickens could damage them. The rooster struts proudly. Flaps his wings, crows. The leader of the flock. John is a little afraid of the rooster. He can be aggressive sometimes. As noon approaches, John checks for eggs. The chicken coop is a small wooden shed. Inside are straw nests. John carefully puts his hand in. 3 more eggs. Good. He carries the eggs carefully. Must not break them. Eggs are very valuable. Protein source. Can be sold or bartered. His mother appears at the door. John, come inside. Food is ready. John runs excitedly. Hungry. He's been outside all morning. Thomas and William have returned from the field. Hands washed. The family gathers at the table. This meal is more nutritious. Pottage with vegetables, fresh bread. Hot from the oven, smelling beautiful. There is a little cheese, there is ale. Thomas prays first, then they begin to eat. The hot food relaxes tired bodies. How is the field? Margaret asks. Slow, but we made progress, Thomas answers. The ground is very hard. But we did our work. William worked well. Thomas sends praise to his son. William smiles proudly. His father's praise is valuable. The laundry is hung, Margaret reports. Hopefully it dries by evening. The bread is very good, Mother, Agnes says. Thank you, dear. A simple conversation. Daily chores, simple happiness. Medieval life is plain like this, repetitive, but meaningful. When the meal is finished, everyone takes a short rest. Medieval people usually rest briefly in the afternoon. Especially in winter when days are short, conserving energy is important. Thomas and William lie down by the fire. Eyes close. A half-hour nap. The body heals. Gathers strength. Margaret and Agnes clear the dishes. Meaning, they wipe the bowls, wipe the table. Then they too rest briefly. The house is quiet. Only the crackling of the fire is heard. Outside, the wind blows lightly. A peaceful moment. As the firelight dances on the walls, the house settles into silence. Another day has ended. A day full of labor, simple but meaningful. Outside, the wind plays with the snow. Inside, warmth remains, from the fire, and from the peace of being together. Thomas, Margaret, William, and little Agnes, each releases the day's fatigue in their own quiet corner. Behind the wooden walls, the world seems to pause. Time flows heavily, breaths slow down. A home, a family, a dinner. The story of a simple happiness that has remained unchanged throughout the Middle Ages. And outside, a silence remains within the wind, blending into the cold night. The last crackle of the fire is heard, and life drifts into a short sleep, ready to begin again.